Hello from New York. It is currently September 19th, and I am situated right now on a popular timber rattlesnake gestating site, also known as a birthing rookery. As the name implies, a timber rattlesnake birthing rookery is a sought-out location with a microhabitat that pregnant rattlesnakes find suitable for gestating and giving birth. These birthing rookeries are usually communal, and depending on the size of the local population and how many females happen to be pregnant in a given year, several to upwards of a few dozen females may utilize one specific gestating birthing site. These gestating sites become established in early summer, where the pregnant snakes will spend the better part of 3 months before giving live birth between late August and late September. During this time, the females will eat very little, if at all. This year, I wanted to add a new approach, specifically setting up trail cameras, not only at this gestating site, but several others in the vicinity. I really only got into trail cameras in late fall of 2020. My ultimate goal was to capture timber rattlesnake footage the following spring, which gave me the opportunity to practice and, if I'm honest, feed my growing obsession with trail cameras well before rattlesnake spring emergence. Some of my favorite clips includes this family of river otters barreling through deep fresh snow, a screech owl's failed predation attempt on a white-footed mouse, and a barred owl having success on that score. As a reptile fan, I felt especially fortunate that a couple of the cameras captured footage of Blanding's turtles beginning their early spring migration from one wetland to another. When spring finally did arrive, I set up a total of 3 trail cameras at 2 different timber rattlesnake den sites. And although the cameras were only triggered periodically by the sluggish reptiles, enough noteworthy footage was captured to produce a video, the link to which is in the description below if you are interested. At the birthing rookeries, I set up 1 trail camera at 4 different sites and 2 at a 5th. I also positioned a camera on a rocky slope between 2 birthing rookeries. Now, it was a good thing I set up as many cameras as I did, because early on 4 were damaged by black bears. In each case, the plastic piece covering the infrared bulbs was broken. The camera still functioned, but unfortunately moisture was allowed to get into the cameras, causing condensation to build up on the inside of the lenses. And wouldn't you know it, this summer was the wettest on record. Oh well, at least the cameras captured the bears in the act of roughing them up. One bear in particular revisited the camera located on the rocky slope several times, determined to wrestle it from the chestnut oak it was attached to. Here it looks like as though it is actually headbutting the camera. At this point, the bear needed a break from its onslaught and actually lays down to take a rest. Notice how the footage is in black and white now, despite it being in the daytime. Well, it appears the bear damaged some sensor or computer chip, and now the camera unfortunately won't shoot in color anymore. As previously mentioned, I had trail cameras set up at 5 rattlesnake gestating sites. At this site, unfortunately, most of what was captured was just the sky, because a bear had knocked over the camera within a couple of days after setting it up. Moving on to our second site, which I have nicknamed the Courtyard for those of you who have read my book. I was concerned that all of the footage would look like this due to condensation building up on the inside of the lens, because this camera, of course, was damaged by a bear while set up at a different location. Thankfully, however, the lens was mostly clear here to capture these 2 male timber rattlesnakes engaged in a combat dance. I will discuss this behavior in some detail shortly, when incredibly a second camera captured even better footage of a combat dance at another site. A gray squirrel cameo. Now, I've been amazed at the number of rattlesnake prey captured on the trail cameras that carelessly visits these gestating and or basking areas. But here is a first, a bear that actually does no more than sniff the camera. Maybe it noticed that the unit was already damaged by one of its relatives and saw no point in adding insult to injury. Okay, on to our third site. Overall at this spot, not too much noteworthy footage to share. There were several gravid females at this site which successfully gave birth, but the mums and babies barely showed up on the trail camera. What we have here, however, is likely a male timber, searching for any receptive females. So even though this is a birthing rookery, it is also a basking area for receptive, non-pregnant females that will make occasional summer visits to bask, especially while in shed. It should be noted that adult female timber rattlesnakes can only breed every 2 to 4 years. This is because the females are so metabolically drained after giving birth that it takes a while just to get their weight back up into the normal range. Considering that females don't reach sexual maturity until they are between 4 and 8 years old, adult females may only reproduce 3 or 4 times during their lives. Here is a white-footed mouse, tempting fate. Hopefully someday or some night, I get lucky and one of the trail cameras captures footage of rattlesnake predation. Uh-oh, I think we know that this will be the camera's last footage. I am amazed, though, the amount of free rein these black bears seem to have trampling around Rattlesnake Central. I suspect that the bear's thick hide and fur offer significant protection. Moreover, the rattlesnakes seem aware that remaining motionless is their best defense. So there is probably limited interaction between the two species, unlike, say, between the bears and my trail cameras. On to our fourth birthing rookery. This camera I set further back and from more of an elevated position compared to the other sites to offer more of a wide-angle view. Naturally, the camera captured footage of the rattlesnakes basking, a pair of coyotes passing through. Notice how the second one stops and sniffs under the rock slab where the snakes are sheltered, but decides to move on. A lone porcupine sauntering on by. Here is a turkey vulture that chose to land in exactly the wrong spot. The rattlesnakes are not visible, but you can hear them rattling even after the vulture flies away. Phew, a bear that doesn't seem aware of my trail camera. Never mind. Well, at least after the attack, the camera remained attached to the tree and still functioned despite it being at a serious angle now. They say curiosity killed the cat, but this gray squirrel could be a runner-up. The squirrel is certainly aware of the snakes, but it seems undecided what to do about it. And speaking of rodent prey, here is not one, but 2 mice scurrying around in close proximity of one of their top predators. Another curious creature, this time a northern flicker, a type of woodpecker. The bird clearly sees the rattlesnakes and recognizes the potential danger, but can't resist giving them a good once-over. This is my favorite clip from this site. A young black bear unaware that it just walked past at least one rattlesnake. And once again, this documents that in many cases, timber rattlesnakes' best line of defense is to remain motionless. Okay, if you are viewing this on a smaller screen, you're totally not going to see this, but what was captured here is a small pile of newborn rattlesnakes. Eventually, the bear returned to finish off the camera. And here comes our curious squirrel coming over to inspect the damage. We are on to our 5th and final site. If you recall, I set up 2 cameras at this birthing rookery, and by far the footage captured was the most interesting and entertaining. Moreover, the cameras were unmolested by bears the entire summer. As expected, the cameras captured the rattlesnakes numerous times, both day and night. One of the cameras frequently captured the basking snakes in a large shifting pile. Most of these are gravid females, and this scene played itself out until the second half of September, when they all gave birth. More on that later. So this is the camera I previously mentioned, which captured better footage of a combat dance. Combat dances are performed as a way to determine male dominance when receptive females are nearby. Now, these combat dances are really just wrestling matches where one male repeatedly tries to pin its opponent to the ground. As you can clearly see, one male quickly becomes the winner by punching its head into the side of its opponent's head, which resulted in the snake smacking into the rock. These combat dances rarely result in injury, so though our defeated male took a decisive blow, he looks no worse for the wear. Captured by the same camera was an eastern garter snake, likely a gravid female. I have on occasion found gravid garters at timber rattlesnake birthing rookeries. Okay, moving on to other animals that visited this birthing rookery. Here are a pair of raccoons apparently feeding on cave crickets, which inhabit both rattlesnake basking areas and den sites. In fact, cave crickets crawling all over timber rattlesnakes, especially at den sites in the fall, is a common sight. Here is one of the raccoons approaching and even reaching underneath the birthing rock. Now, this was late September and there were large numbers of baby rattlesnakes present, but I think the raccoon is more interested in less risky insects. Notice how it pulls back quickly when what sounds like an adult rattlesnake shifting underneath the rock. But once the rattlesnakes sound the alarm, the raccoon heeds the warning. Although not visible here, I think the rattlesnakes became startled because the raccoon's tail brushed up very close to the snakes situated on the mini ledge just beneath the opposite side of the granite slab, close to where I have the second trail camera set up. This birthing rookery wouldn't be complete without rodent prey making appearances, including even a flying squirrel. We also need our black bear cameo. Here we go. And thank you, Mr. Bear, for leaving my cameras alone. Okay, onto my favorite trail cam footage captured during this whole video. In 3, 2, 1... What we just witnessed was a close call for a bobcat kit, and without waiting for Mom's cue, nearly rockets itself off the small ledge. This really demonstrates how effective a rattlesnake's rattle can be when the reptiles feel as though they are in immediate danger or are about to be inadvertently stepped on. The next clip is a bit comical. Mom, who is already tense, is startled by the sound of her kit jumping down into the scrub oak. If you recall, this is the same spot the raccoon launched itself from. Mother Bobcat and her kit visit the birthing rookery a couple more times over the next several weeks. The Bobcat kit understandably is more wary of the rattlesnakes now, but ironically the rattlesnakes appear to have become indifferent to the young feline. Since this birthing rookery left us with some incredible trail cam footage, it only seems fitting to reveal the baby timber rattlesnakes produced at this site. Postpartum females remain with their young for about 10 days, shortly after the babies go through their first shed. After shedding, the young snakes must migrate to the population's overwintering den by following the scent of their mother or other adults. And since babies are born in early autumn, they have a limited amount of time to make it to the ancestral den before it gets too cold. But those young that successfully complete the journey have a greater chance of surviving their first winter and ultimately reaching adulthood. Thanks for watching this production, and if you want to show your support, please consider subscribing.